Alright, I got the top tube of the bumper in place, squared up side to side, leveled to the chassis. This is right where I want to weld it in. I cleaned up the top of the frame stubs here. We're going to make a tube that goes right from here, intersects, weld them in, and then everything else will be based off of that. So to find the angle, first I'll cut the angle in the bottom of the tube, and then we'll throw a notch in it. So to find that angle, I'm just going to use another piece of tape here. And I don't know if it's going to stick to this rusty crap. We'll try to get it mostly level. And then we'll attach it to the top here. Hopefully it'll stick. Looks like it'll stick good enough. Now the tube is going to be recessed a little more than that, but that'll be close enough for what I need. I'm going to use this, I don't know what this is called. I call it an angle finder. We're going to use that. We're going to square it up with the frame rail, and then we're going to get it good to go with the tape line, and then we're just going to add a little bit of angle to it, because the tube isn't going to be up against this, it's going to be back just a little bit. So tighten this up, double check it, measure twice, cut once. That is very wrong. We'll get this thing square. Still wrong. I don't know how that happened. Cool, that's where I like it. So, this is our angle. Now let's take our little tape measure here. 7.5 inches, but I'm going to cut this a little long, so about 8 inches. First thing we're going to do is set up the saw to the angle that we just found, and then we'll take a slice. Go grab a crescent wrench. Pull that back out of the way. Loosen up the other bolt here. And loosen that up just a little more. Now we got enough room to get our angle. Get this up just a little bit. And now, based on this line here, we will set our angle. There we go. Give this a quick tighten. That will be good enough. I got this piece of 1 5/8 by 1/8 wall, it looks like, DOM tube. We're going to use that. I like varying the thickness, adds a little dimension to it, makes it look a little more dynamic. And plus the frame rail is only about 1 3/4 wide. So, and it's kind of curved on the edges, so I think this will just fit a little nicer. All right, give her a chap. All right. I grabbed a tube that is long enough to make both pieces out of, so we'll just go ahead and slice the other side. Don't need to worry about getting the orientation right, because we're going to cut them to 8 inches and then throw a notch in it, so give us a cut. Alright, I got both my pieces cut, and I got my Bailey tube notcher all mounted up there in the Wilton vise, and got a 1 3/4 hole saw on it because that's what the top tube is. Got the thing dialed back to 0 because we just want it to be vertical. This tube notcher is freaking awesome. I've used a whole bunch. I've made my own. I've used a bunch of other brands. This one is by far the most versatile. It's a lot easier to make an offset notch. The whole assembly slides up and down, and then there's 2 slots here that you can choose from. So you can do offset notches, you can notch in the middle of bends. The way that this clamp works is really great, so that you can clamp in the middle of bends. And this is by far the best notcher on the market. When I notch tubes, I never use any type of lubricant. I see people dousing it with WD-40 while you're notching, or using any other type of lubricant, or even like cutting fluid, tapping fluid type stuff. I don't do that. I've notched thousands of notches, 10,000 notches. I have used fluid. I have not used fluid. I've done a lot of experimenting, and I believe that the hole saws actually last longer when you're not using fluid. They don't cut any slower. It doesn't stink up your whole shop. You're not breathing those toxic fumes, and it's not leaving a huge residue on the inside of your tubes that you have to clean out, because even if you're going to MIG weld it, it can really mess up your weld. As soon as that tube gets hot and all that lubricant that was sprayed up on there gets hot, it just flows down into the weld, and it creates a really crappy weld. If you're trying to TIG weld, forget about it. You need to fully clean these things before you TIG weld. I mean, you should do that anyways, but if you use lubricant when you cut, man, it takes a while to get those things ready. So I always notch dry. I let the tool do the cutting. I don't force it through, and that way the bits last a long time. Just from my own experience, I find it best to not use any WD, any type of lubricant, just cut dry. So we're going to go ahead and notch these tubes. We're going to do a pretty shy notch at first and eyeball it in there. With notching, I always take a lot more notches than try to nail it the first time and then have to go back and reset up the bandsaw to the correct angle and all that. I'd rather take a shy notch, get the tube up in there, eyeball it, and then start nipping away at it. It seems to work a lot better. Now, the top tube is going to be perpendicular to the angle here. So you can't just notch at any arbitrary angle. It has to be perpendicular to the cut that you made. So we're going to put this in. Doesn't matter if the cut is up or if it's down. I put it up because then looking from this angle, it's a lot easier to see and get it squared up. So this is looking pretty good. I will move it in a little bit, and then I will check the squareness again. Clamp this guy down. You don't want to really wrench on this thing, not necessary, especially when you're just doing a straight clamp. There's really, sometimes when you're doing a really big angle or you're trying to go in a bend, you want to crank this thing down a little more because you don't want that tube to spin. And especially if the tube's longer with a bend, there's going to be some weight on it. But this little thing, that'll be good. Also, eye protection. I've had a trip to the hospital, and I got a piece of metal that came off, taken out of my eye with like a 6-inch long needle, so that's no fun. Alright, get this thing going in the right direction. Now you want to be careful when you're getting to the halfway part, especially if you're not taking the biggest cut, because like you just saw, that little piece flew out of there. Now sometimes they don't fly out of there, and depending on the hole saw you use, they have these holes in the side that make it easier for removal. If that piece doesn't fling out and gets caught in there, you can ruin your brand new hole saw very easily. It'll change shape. You can bend the shaft of your notcher, and it can catch, and you can break your wrist. So better safe than sorry. And a 1/2-inch drill like this, that's variable speed, is necessary. You're going to wear through batteries and wear out your cordless drill if you're using it on this. And I find it necessary to have this handle. I mean, if you just cut through, you're fine. But like I said, if one of those pieces gets caught, or if the tube shifts on you, you're going to really want to have a strong hold of that. So let's take this off. Let's give her a quick test fit here. See how close we are. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not getting too crazy with the camera here. Save that for later maybe. Let's get this up in there. And would you look at that? That is actually dead nuts where I wanted it. So, good thing I took a shy cut, because that ended up being the right cut. That is exactly where I want it. So we're gonna take it back off. We're gonna clean up all the burrs, and we're gonna put a bevel on both sides of the tube so that you can fill that with weld. A lot of people, they make this really nice notch and they leave it just like this, and it just fits up. Can't even fit a hair in there. Well, that's all nice, but you want to get that bevel so that you can get more penetration on your weld. So I'm just gonna get a good bevel going on this real quick. That we need to be plugged in. I wish I knew where my 3-way was. Oh, that don't seem right. I'm all about equal opportunity, but that didn't work. Alright, that's what that looks like. You don't have to put a huge bevel on it, but you can tell now when the tube goes on there, it's not a sharp edge on there. That, you know, especially with a MIG welder, that's just going to melt away anyways, but that'll cause you generally to put more of the weld onto the non-notch tube than the notch tube, because you're going to think that that's the intersection that you should be aiming for, where really it's more inboard. So I could definitely put a little more of a notch on there, but I think that's fine. And then I like to round off the tip just a little bit more. Sometimes they come out real pointy, and I think it looks better on the weld. You can see it kind of matches this better if you grind that down just a bit and it's not such a peak. So this one's ready to go. This is the left one. We're gonna put an L on there so that we know. Now let's notch the right one, and I'm gonna take this one really shy too. You know, even if you get everything as square as possible, these tubes might end up being very slightly different lengths. This is a 1996. It has 196,000 miles. It hit a deer. Things might be just a little bit out of proportion. So don't be too alarmed if the tubes need to be slightly different lengths. As long as everything looks nice and square with your eyeballs, it's really all you need to do for stuff like this. This isn't a roll cage, it's mostly cosmetic. This thing could be way out of square and it would still look good rolling down the street, but we're going to try to get it as good as possible. Alright, let's give this bad boy a notch here. We need to plug it in. I think I would have learned that, but nope. Alright. Let's go give this one a fit. See how we did. This one's basically the same length as the other one, so this will tell us a few things about our chassis. So this is definitely too short. Now, I just eyeballed these in the saw over there, so these very well might not be the same length right now. Like I said, this car has been through some things. I think the headlights, the trim underneath the headlights, you know, isn't exactly level and whatnot, so I'm squaring it off of the core support, the upper core support, this core support, the radiator, the stubs of the frame rail, and the body lines, and just kind of fudging everything until everything is as good as it's going to get. So this one's going to need another notch. So we'll go back there. It's probably going to need, let's say, 3/16 more notched off. So I'm going to say that right there. I think that's going to be good. Now we'll re-square this up, get that good to go. See if that's what I like, yep. And give her another notch. Alright, I got the top tube eyeballed up, squared up. Looks as good as she's going to get. I got the tubes we just made mounted up. Got some squares, some magnetic squares holding them in so that they are perpendicular and parallel to each other. Got them centered up on the frame stubs. Got my Miller-Matic all set up. I got this thing right before they switched to digital, unfortunately. So it's got this rotary valve, or rotary switch here. So unfortunately, for some of the tubing I do, like the 095 stuff, it really seems like 2.5 would be a great setting. But if I do 2 and then set the wire speed a little higher than the chart that they have in here, which is pretty helpful. I'm running 030 wire. For a 14 gauge, it says 234. For 1/8 inch, 350. The tubing that I'm going to be welding is 1/8 inch, but 350 is a little hot. I can back off the wire speed, but a lot of the welding on the top at least is going to be all upside down. So you want that wire speed to counteract gravity. So I'm going to go with 2 and then up the wire speed to 38. That's a setting that I have found that works pretty well for me. And so I'm going to roast some tacks on the top, a couple of tacks on the top, a couple of tacks on the bottom. I'll take the magnets off, and then I will roll some welds all the way around them. And then it will be supported on its own, and I can keep building from there. I'm going to start making excuses now. It's been a while since I've done any MIG welding, so it's either going to be some re-beginner's luck, or it's going to look like crap. But either way, I'm confident that it ain't going to go nowhere. So let's get to welding. Get my welding do-rag on. This thing is necessary to keep from burning holes in your scalp. It also helps that it covers your ear hole. I've gotten a hot piece of slag down my ear hole, and Not a whole lot worse than that. I got some long sleeves on, so I'll put those down, get my welding gloves. I'm not the type of dude who is going to tack by squinting. I've had my eyes wrecked doing that. I've also had bad sunburns, so I'm going to roll a tack on the top outside first. And this top outside. Now we'll do both sides of the bottom. Woo! There's one. Woo! Woo! Got one right away. The bottom is probably not going to weld too amazing. I got it as clean as I could. I could have used a wire wheel. We'll see what happens. I hope I don't regret the decision. Looks like it's doing all right. Yeah, it's kind of throwing up a little bit, but it's all right. Take these guys off. And at this point, I can really do some welding. So I'm just going to roll some beads, see what happens. I'm going to start at the back, do as much as I can from this angle. That's acceptable. Gotta get this last little fit if I can. See if I can reach in here. Roast this guy. All right, now I can take the stand out. Pretty sure. The clamp back on the tube here. Roast the rest of this one. Now, welding vertically has never been my strong suit. I'm not a welder by trade. When I used to do cages and be more of a fab guy, practice makes perfect. It's looking adequate though. I'll stop making excuses and just weld. All right. Now we will weld the bottom. This will be a little tricky bastard. Alright, moment of truth. Well, looks like I need to put a little more weld there. This didn't turn out so bad, except for didn't really want to fuse to the frame rail very good, but there's two pieces there, so definitely fused to the top one. Fused a bit to the bottom piece there, but should have cleaned it a little more, of course. There's that weld. This one I was kind of fighting with gravity a bit. Got a little better on the other side. Same with this. I definitely should have cleaned that up a bit, but there's going to be a lot more points of attachment, and it's plenty strong, so they're presentable. Certainly not my best work. Haven't done much tubing in a while, but there you have it. So now this top tube is welded in. Ain't going nowhere. So still left to do is make a bottom hoop that comes up, and then we're gonna make the top tube. It's gonna come up and match this angle, come up to the hood pretty tight down. Instead of having the tube come off here, I'd rather have it I think it aesthetically looks better to have the next tube come right off of here, come up at an angle. Like I said, it'll be pretty tight to the top. I'll have to plan on being able to get underneath there to get the hood latch, but you can see how the end turned out there. Just turn the welder off. And so that last little bend that I decided to make really kind of set it off nice. This I will chop with a Sawzall and put a cap on it once everything is said and done, or whenever the heck I feel like it. But it's looking pretty good so far. Again, everything behind the tube bumper is going to just have a quick coat of satin black, like a semi-gloss, I think, maybe flat black, we'll see. And then I'm planning on painting the tube itself, the tube bumper gloss black. And yeah, definitely a good start. It's getting a little late here, about 10 p.m. That's not really late, but I've been getting up every morning at 6, getting on the road at 6:15 for work. Last 4 weeks I put in 70 hours every week, physical labor, so I definitely am sore. I also completely ate shit on my mountain bike last weekend. Went over the handlebars at like 17 miles an hour. Got a massive bruise in my leg, messed up my shoulder, my wrist. So I'm not going to hit this too hard tonight, but good progress. I think I'm going to set up and do the I think I'm going to start from the top down. So I think I'm going to do this tube next, get that in there and welded. Then I'm going to work on doing a tube. I think I'm going to do it right from this bend, come down, bend, come down, attach right to the frame rail here. Do that out of 1.5 inches. Again, this is 1 3/4, 1 5/8. This will be 1.5 inches. The top will be 1.5 inches. The bottom here will be 1 5/8. And then we'll use probably 1 5/8 to come down, possibly from this junction, or maybe just inboard of it, and that will come down to right after the bend on the lower hoop, and then that will get an aluminum plate that I will bead roll and dimple die. So far so good. I'm digging it. Alright, so I'm assuming this is the center. No. Fuck. That was the center. Why would this not be on the center? That's a really weird thing to me. That's not on the center. I was assuming that was on the center. I don't know why. Alright, well, take some new measurements then. Center should be, that's 31, 15 and a half. Let me get a new piece of tape. I guess this works. 15 and a half. Right here. There we go. So now, we'll call this 42 instead, or 44. 76 degrees is still going to be key. But now, between the bends, we're looking at 8 inches on center. So we double that, 16 inches between the bends. Alright, so let's find a 42-inch piece, or cut a 42-inch piece of 1.5 tube, and we will mark it 42 minus 16 is 26 divided by 2 is 13. So we'll cut a 42-inch piece of 1.5. We'll mark it 13 inches in from each end, and then we'll bend them to 76 degrees. So we'll probably end up bending it to about 82 with the spring back. Throw some notches in it, square it up, weld it in. I fit the Hella 500 Black Magic driving lights, fog lights, and I'm just going to make little tabs for them. I'm not going to make a whole panel or anything like that. And I'm going to have the tube be pretty flush, maybe even the slightest bit behind the leading edge of the bumper or the hood. We'll see how that works. That'll be good for the clearance for the Hellas. It might look better to have the same overhang here as here. It might not matter. We'll figure that out. Here we have the next tube. Cut to 42 inches, 16 inches on center for the bends. Gonna bend those guys at 76 degrees. So I'm gonna set this to 82 degrees. Kind of estimating the spring back here. Damn near close to 90. It's gonna be a little interesting to see if we have enough leg to do that. I think we will. But I have the 1 3/4 dies in here. So let's switch the dies out. I'll show you how easy it is to do. Pull out the pin for the roller, flip the top back, pull out the pin for this die, remove the follow block, put the new follow block in, put in the new die, and like I said before, it can go this way, or it can go that way. Doesn't really matter. You can flip it for whatever your needs are. We'll just keep this in that way. And since this is a much smaller die, it's a smaller radius and a smaller tube, we move the roller up 2 holes, drop that guy back in, and I have a smaller saddle. I don't remember, nope, looks like we still use the same saddle. So we will move that off to the side, and we can get started on The first bend's here. Oh, see, I almost did that wrong. We're bending to the outside. That would have wasted some material there. Get that in, make sure that's all the way through. Tighten the clamp here. Line it up with the line. Tighten it, move the follow block up. You don't want it to be touching the clamp here. A little bit of a gap. But looks like we are all set to bend. So we'll just start rolling a whole bunch of bend through it, and then once we get close, we'll check it with the protractor, then we'll measure it, flip over the other side, duplicate it, give her a check, throw some notches in it. Wada-ta, my Damie. Looks like I went a little bit past it. I got a little excited there, but there's so much spring back. I think we're going to be alright. If we're not, well, we might just deal with it. Looks like we got 3 11/16 and a half of that. So, if we break it down in 30 seconds, which no one likes to do, that is going to be, I don't know, 16 30 seconds plus, oh boy, I'm not good at that, 5/8, so that's 20, 21, 22, 23, 3 and 23 30 seconds, 3 and 23 30 seconds, or 11/16 long. So, do our usual marking of the tube. I think we went a little long on the bend, so I don't think we'll have to put it in and rebend it, but take this off, let the die fully return, slide the follow tube or the follow bar back, and we will clamp this guy on the line, so that's 16 on center. We got it right there, and snug it up a little bit. And now we just got to get the twist right. When it's this much of a bend, it's quite a bit easier to get the twist right than when it's a shallow bend. We're going to roll with that, tighten her up, turn her loose. Boom. Looks like we got her. All right. There's our tube. See how poorly we did over bending it. Well, that's going to work out pretty good because you can see how much it needs to lower down. It's a little bit wider right now. We want it to be on center of the vertical pipes here. So as we notch it down, it will be probably more inside to inside than on center. But we're going to be doing pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little angle finder here and we're going to match this up so that we can set the notch on our notcher and we can start notching away. So that's what we want. Here's our notcher. Let me get some of this crap out of the way. Here's the notcher. We're going to loosen this. Once you loosen that, you can see there's your range of motion. Another thing I like about this Bailey machine is that most machines you can only go from 0 to positive whatever, but this you can go negative, this is 25, but if you moved it over to the other set of slots, you could go 30, 35 degrees. So that is super handy. Other machines you run into issues with that. Now, see if I can do this without being too much of a dipshit here. Basically, you just want to square this up. I think I can do better if I get a piece of tube in there. Doesn't have to be the one I'm going to use, just a piece of tube. Get a piece of tube in here, rotate it so there's no burr. God forbid you have a bill burr, and then we can square that. So this is good right there. That's going to be for the one side cut, the other will come out, but at least there, that shows me that angle. Looks like it is. Looks like we're at about 12.5 degrees, right between the 10 and the 15. That'd be about 12.5 or 13. So now I will make some quick references, just so when I get it off, I don't go and screw up and notch in the wrong direction. And if you do that, oftentimes you got to make yourself a new piece. So this is not accurate by any means. It's just a reminder which direction to notch. Here we go. We'll put it in. And this is going to be parallel notch with the tube. So the tube is going to have to go in. And you can see that is not the right way. We could turn the tube this way and notch it. Nope. There we go. This. Nope. This will be the right way. Now we need to get the tube level with the shaft of the notcher. Check on the bottom, check on the top. She's good. We're not going to take a huge bite out for the first time, like I said. The bends are even, the legs, so you want to pay attention to how much you're going to nip off here. So I will just touch it. And then I will take a measurement and note it. Got too much stuff in my area. Need some room. Alright. So this is, we're going to take off from the inside edge of that. This is 5/8. I'm going to take off 5/8. I'll get my little notepad. We'll mark that down. 5/8 notch for the first one. Everything's square. I'll tighten this up just a little bit more. Double check. We're looking good. Get our safety glasses. This is going to be a little awkward, but we'll be good. All right. Oh, I don't want that. Tap out all the shavings. Now we should be able to notch this the same way, unless I'm freaking out here. Yep. So we want to do the same 5/8. I think it needs to be a little more. We'll do that. Get this square right there. Little snug, little touch. We'll measure it. And we need to go further in by at least 1/8. So we'll get that back up there. Do that. Maybe just a tad more. Square this guy up. Actually stay nice and square. Make another touch, make another measurement. Needs to be the tiniest bit more. So I'll take this, loosen it, bring that back up. Easier to reference. That was too much. Just a smidge. That looks good. It's easier to do some extra work to make sure that you're cutting the same amount off of each side than to have to eyeball it. Of course, who's to say that the hood is sitting level, so we might need to make some adjustments afterwards. Anyways, but at first, why not keep it all even? Really slow down at the end and take it easy, because the bends kind of put me in a little precarious position with the tube between me and the machine. And like I said before, better safe than sorry. There's no point in messing yourself up doing this stuff. Then you'll have to take a few days off or whatever, and you'll lose motivation. You'll come back with a little bit of a clouded mind. Alright, so there's our first notch. Kind of center it up here. See if it's level to the hood. Let's get this tape off of here that is kind of blocking my vision. It's definitely level to the hood. So we're looking good. Now the tube is going to want to come down. Basically 3/4 of the diameter of the tube, which is 1.5 inches. So we're going to take an 1-inch notch this time. And the tube started falling down on me, so before I get any further, re-square it up. Really crank that faster down. I'm going to pin it between my chest. There we go. That was really tight. Get the next side in. If I can find the hole. Have problems with that sometimes. Woo! All right, let's see how she fits here. It's looking pretty damn good, just about on center. Let's see if she's gonna fit like I kind of want. I don't know if I like that look. Might like it a little bit lower, yeah. Definitely a little bit lower. See how it's doing level-wise. There's a dent here that's kind of throwing it off. A little bit anyways. I think I can bang that out real quick. Alright, we're gonna take maybe 3/4 of an inch off. Let me get this set up. Now, of course, since this kind of goes in both directions, I could have done it 12.5 degrees the other way. Then the tube would have been 180 degrees flopping off this side. But it's actually better this way, I think, because I can square the tube up, make it parallel with the shaft of the notcher every time. It's just a lot easier than kind of eyeballing it that way. It's a little more precise. Alrighty then. Oh God. See if I can just slide this around. Go like this. That way we can clean up the notches, roasted bevel in there. I'm pretty confident this is gonna work. Could be famous last words. Let's do it. Let's roll with it. Let's see what happens. All right. And let's see if it's ready for some welding. Booyah! We're doing it. Perfect, love it. Gap's pretty even. Let's flip it around. Maybe it'll improve. That's one thing if it's symmetrical. Yep, I like that just a little better. We're rolling with it. I don't think the hood is particularly square. We get back in here. Start roasting. Alright, it's time to call it a night. We'll resume in the morning. I got the top bar welded on. Here comes my doggy Goose. Goose is a dog. Hi, sweetie pie. Say hi. Hi, Gooses. Yup. Yeah, I've been ignoring you all day. I'm sorry, bud. And so we got this top tube welded on. You can see some of the welds turned out a little bit better. Not a very nice tie-in right there, but works for me. You can see that the overhang of this tube matches the other tubes, and that's where we're at. This will get cut with a Sawzall to match the radius, and we'll put a cap on the end. The frame stubs that are sticking out, kind of ugly, but I'm going to repurpose the factory tow hooks, and I'm going to weld these right in place there, clean everything up. They'll get cleaned up nice and welded and painted, and so it won't look so bad. I'll probably round these corners off nicely with the disc sander real quick before I weld that on to kind of match these radiuses, and that's where we're at. Tomorrow we'll make a hoop here on this same plane to kind of match the top. We're going to put some diagonal bars coming down and make a brush guard, do some bead roll on some dimples, and then we're going to make, hi Goose, and then we're going to make a bar from here that comes down, bends, and mounts down to the side of the frame rail stub. See you in the morning.